Hey guys, welcome back to the Trading Desk. We're going to talk about vintage watches. Are they a scam or are they worth your time? Stay tuned. Hey, we're back. Welcome back, guys. It's Thursday. We're going to do this again one more time, I think. That's not Josh.
It's not Josh.
You are?
Mike Manjos.
All right, so if those of you guys don't know Mike, senior guy in the office, pricing
Does
manager.
that mean old?
I was being cordial.
I am the senior guy in the office.
He is
yes.
the go-to pricing guy. The guy's been around forever. So why don't you tell people kind of where you come from, what you do?
Sure. I am right now. I run the B2B business for Watchbox. Deal with a lot of dealers, retail stores, and help pricing on the floor. As Jason mentioned nicely, I've been around for a while. Grew up in the watch business. My dad was a watchmaker. I learned very quickly I was really bad at it, so learned how to buy and sell watches instead. It's a lot more fun. Been with Watchbox for a little over a year and couldn't be happier. It's the most fun place to work there is because we get to play with all this stuff.
So, guys, I couldn't have tried to find a better guest to replace. Shout out to Josh, who's not here this week, but the cool little one-off antics and stories that come out of this man's mouth on a daily basis on the floor, it's just a great time. And so I thought it would make for some good content. So customary opening, wrist shots.
Okay.
So we do this and we talk about our watches with our battle scars and the stuff we wear all day long, which you would think would be this watch, but wait until you see his. We see Manjos' watch. So for the listening crowd, this is the Rolex 114060. So it's a non-date ceramic Submariner, current generation, also known as the better Submariner. And I've had this guy, I think it's going on 2 years now, maybe a year and a half. I don't know, but I enjoy it. Every time I put it on, I'm reminded of how much I like this watch. And I'll switch it. I'll go to the Explorer 2 or the Breitling or the Panerai. But once you put this back on, it really is just okay, it makes sense.
It's the right watch.
Yeah, it's a great watch, very versatile. This is the one watch that I would grab and just wear no matter what. So, and I think that pretty much sums up the Submariner.
I love the Submariner. It's classic. And you can't go
Another
wrong.
classic, and a watch that's
By
pretty hot.
Batman.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I guess I had it before it was hot. I just happen to, I like blue. I'm a blue guy. Everything I do is blue. This one is kind of beat up pretty good because I'm a believer in, it's a tool. It never comes off my wrist unless I'm switching to my deep sea. My Cameron's my other go-to. It's a little big to wear doing a lot of things, but this one never comes off. And it's probably been with me 4 or 5 years. I originally had a black, and then when this came out, I fell in love. Had to wait a year to get it, and then have had that ever since.
Yeah, and he wears it all the time. I can
all the
attest
time.
To that, yeah. Cool watch. I mean, it's got some battle scars on it.
Yeah,
but
it's a little beat up, but it's a Rolex. It's supposed to be worn.
It's a GMT.
Yeah.
So,
love it.
And you're actually one of the few guys that I know that wears a GMT and travels the world. So,
I do get around a lot, and it is a good functionality-wise.
Yeah, unfortunately, my Explorer 2 has not been out of the
fix
state
that
yet, so not yet. All right, guys. I think we normally do this thing. It's top 5.
I've
most
seen
clicked website, something like that. I don't know whose website it is. I think it's ours. I'm not sure, but let's cue the graphic.
I hope it's ours.
This is how we sell some watches every once in a while. All right, look at that. Some disparity there on the screen. Bunch of different stuff.
Interesting stuff.
So
It was not what I was expecting.
Yeah. So number 5, we talk about this a little bit. Vacheron Overseas, non-chronograph.
Non-chronograph base model, great watch. Super hard to get new. I mean, it's still current production, but I had an inquiry on one today because I do a lot of the managing of the new brand, and it's a 3 to 6 month lead time on the blue.
Special order one.
To the special order one, and it's that particular blue is super bright. I've never been the biggest Vacheron guy in the world because when you're side by side with Patek, which you usually are, but I happen to love this because it's a great steel sport watch and a value and a half when you compare it to a steel Patek today.
So I like the chronograph version of this watch obviously better, which I think most people do. For a price point, it makes sense, the non-chrono. I think, the blue is the one everybody wants. But it's a cool watch. The non-chrono actually gives you more room for the blue to kind of pop.
Yes,
So I can see why people would want that. But, all right, very cool. Number 4, big gold Rolex.
Big gold Rolexes are hot all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the gold. Yachtmaster's probably the most reasonably priced gold one.
Right.
You know, all the other gold ones have really shot up. We just got the blue dial one in, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Right.
I think actually I might have brought that one in.
So,
love the blue.
Modern size Rolex. Every guy can wear it. It's big. It's gold. It's blue dial. I would imagine this is probably going to sell somewhere in Russia. It's a very UN inspired kind of look. It's a cool watch. It's got some vintage flair to it. I mean, it's the older
It does. It's got exactly. Well, but almost all of the variations you see are the white dial with the black circles.
Sure.
The blue just pops better for me, and everybody loves whatever blue these days. Just takes off.
Right.
So I love the Yachtmaster, and surprised it's still there.
All right, so number 3. I don't know if we can go with the top 5 without a Submariner on here, unless we don't have them in inventory.
I think you were clicking on that one the whole time.
I mean, so it does happen where they're not on there, but I think it's simply because we don't have one posted. But so here, you guys just saw this on my wrist, this exact same watch. So it's the 114060. It's a non-date. You know, we get some flack from some super stingy guys that say that we should call it the Submariner because there's no such thing as a non-date Submariner. There's a Submariner
the original.
date. So hey,
true. The original Submariners were no dates. I mean, that was true to the piece.
I call it a Submariner non-date, and I own it, so I call it whatever I want.
Well, it's funny because I'm a date cripple. I have to have a watch with it. We were just talking about that. It's a great look, and they're super popular. It surprises me how many people go the non-date route when I'm like, I can't wear a Daytona, I can't wear a non-date because even though I have my phone, I'm just naturally have to go to the wrist.
I like the non-date. I think there is a little bit of a learning curve to it, but there's a simplicity to it. There's obviously the dial aesthetics cleaner.
You don't miss the bubble?
I do not like the bubble. Actually...
That's why I love my Deep Sea though, because it's still has a date, but I can't read the damn
4000 is awesome because no window.
Right.
All right, number 2. Look, they're not all Rolexes, but there's a lot of Rolex on there.
There's a lot of Rolex.
So Explorer. You know, what are you gonna say? Basic, under $6,000 steel Rolex.
It's super underappreciated watch, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Sir Edmund Hillary's watch. I mean, that was the basis of Rolex sport models.
Right.
Was the Explorer. This is what people used as their tool watch.
So
you can do anything with it.
Yeah, I love the old Milgausses that are now discontinued without the tinted crystals. I think if you're looking for something that's not that, then you go this route because it's an iconic style. It's easy to read. It's simple, and you don't have to buy an OP39.
Correct. Right? I think the other thing that's nice is the new Air King has become.
Yeah.
We never get it in stock. We can't keep it in stock.
So I like this dial layout's much nicer. The Air King's a little busy for me.
It's a little busy, but it's the same kind of thing, and I think that's why it's been so popular and successful.
All right, cool. Number 1. Look at that.
Shocking.
The best watch on that screen. A little bit of sarcasm behind that.
You think?
I don't know. This is a Tango, I think it's called.
That is a Tango, yes.
Raymond Weil.
It scares me that I know that, but I did.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess stainless steel sport watch that's cheap.
$550
might be the reason why it's on that screen.
Yeah, I mean it's a good looking watch for
$550. It's I know that enough to know that it's Swiss made. It's sapphire crystal.
Correct.
I'm pretty sure that's quartz. I would imagine at $550. So figure something you don't have to worry about. Maybe it's a gift watch. But
or for kid. I mean, I got 3 boys. It's like it's a good kid first watch to knock around.
Entry level.
Entry level.
I guess if you're looking at something like a Tissot and we've talked about that before, it makes sense.
Nothing wrong with
$500.
Yep.
All right.
It's nice to see there's a lot of
if you want to
just
buy
regular people.
Anything on that screen, we have them in inventory except for the Raymond Weil. That's gone. Don't call me for that. What?
You can call me for the Raymond Weil. I'm not a snob like some
watch.
people here. That's all right.
All right. We got a pretty cool show for you guys today. So this topic was actually born from a conversation that Josh and I were having in front of Manjos.
Yes. And
we were like, you know what? That would probably make a pretty good show. So we're just talking about vintage watches, where the market went wrong, where collectors went wrong, what makes sense, like basic discussion, do's and don'ts. We got a couple key examples of some watches, some references that we'll put up on the screen to talk about, but we'll try and run through them quick. I want to keep the show relatively, within half an hour, 35 minutes. So let's pull up, we got our first reference here. What's your impression of this piece, Manjos?
Let's take a step back. So when we talk vintage, people throw the term around all the time. I have people who tell me that, it's a 6-year-old, 10-year-old watch. It's vintage. It's not vintage. It might be discontinued. It might be whatever, but it's not really vintage. This is a true vintage watch. This is a Patek 2526, one of the earliest automatics.
Tiffany dial.
The Tiffany dial gets special, but the 2526 as a reference is iconic Patek.
Right.
It's got the double P signature crown. It's a little thicker and bigger than typically. This was back in the early to mid 50s. This was considered a big, bulky watch, especially for Patek. Screw-back case,
Right.
Had some water resistancy. When back then, your typical dress watch was super thin, super delicate. You didn't do anything to it. Then this particular one, and a lot of the 2526s have an enamel dial. And again, if you compare the enamel dials from the 50s compared to the enamel dials that are currently produced, there's no comparison. The thickness of the enamel, the depth of it feels vintage when you look at it.
It feels like a special watch, which is
right. It is a special watch, and then you add Tiffany to it.
Right, and then this specific piece was kind of like a step away from making something that was. It's basically a hybrid of a sport watch and a dress watch at the time, because you're doing something with some water resistance. It's a little bit more robust than your average dress watch, but it's pretty and it's got a sub-second. And hey, we're gonna, on something as rare as this one, we'll throw the Tiffany stamp on there. And
yes, and the Tiffany again has taken off in the last couple of years. One of these in a platinum piece came up at auction last year.
Yeah, we were looking at the results.
Went through the roof.
$650,000 or something like that.
$650,000. It was the only known example. I mean, there aren't a lot of examples even in yellow, but this is where vintage really becomes super rare, super collectible, amazing condition. It's everything you'd want in a perfect, real vintage watch.
Right. So 2526. To clarify, we're using this as an example of a good option because we know that this piece isn't produced in mass amounts.
Very
right. It's hard watch to find. This one's in amazing condition.
Correct.
So we're talking, scarcity. We're talking, potential collectible value down the road, and we're talking condition. So we're not talking about, a piece where the market's been artificially created for a vintage watch.
Correct.
This is a legitimate, awesome purchase.
Yeah, no, the 2526 been collectible for 30 years.
Right.
It wasn't like 2 years ago they were sitting in a showcase and now they're suddenly collectible. And that's the stuff that makes me crazy, is suddenly we see these waves of collectability that I don't think will last long term.
All the little, what it reminds me of, I was getting a coffee before the show, and I was kind of thinking about, when people order, a double Trente Venti, this, mocha, and I'm like, can I just get a plain black coffee?
I'm with you, man.
That's what these when people are like, it's a flat 4, this Mark dial
47,
and a Mark 0 case and a 1, 2, 4, it's kind of like at that point, if you have to tell me every single thing that makes it special, how special could it be?
Could it really be, right?
When you throw that 2526 on your wrist with the Tiffany stamp on it, it's like, all right, that's special.
That's special. You know that's special.
That's kind of it crossed my mind. But next one also I think is a pretty cool looking watch and a legitimate choice here. So I know you have a pretty strong opinion on the 5970.
I have 5970 is my all-time favorite watch. Right. I mean, that is the Grail watch of... and you'll talk to a lot of people. If I would look up Patek in the dictionary, that's what I want to see.
Right.
Perpetual Chronos have been around since the 50s, starting with 1518, 2499, 3970, 5970, 50, now 5270. Still to this day, all in sequence, all special, all in small numbers. The early pieces we have much better numbers on, but 5970 is just perfectly balanced. It's big enough that you can wear it all the time, and the market has shown.
I mean, it stands the test of time because it was a large watch when it came out.
Yes.
Now it's more of a modern size watch, and people can actually wear it and enjoy it. We have a couple examples on the table, which we'll get to later. Fantastic watches, but a tad small for today's current market.
And a lot of vintage is like that. I mean, that's the thing people don't realize. They say they want a vintage, but then you get a 34 millimeter Patek on your wrist, and you're like, God, I feel like
so you'd argue that
my wife's watch.
The 5970 was ahead of its time for what it is.
Yeah, no, it was good. Even the 3970, the predecessor, I remember when I first started selling Pateks, we had one sitting in the case in a white gold for a year and a half.
Right.
And it was a $40,000 watch that was just... not a lot of people appreciated the complication or thought of the size.
So I learned something from Manjos today when we were talking about the 5970, the J variant, and you told me that the J, they actually went backwards. The
Correct.
yellow gold was the last one produced in the
and
series.
it's very rare in the series, and it's something they've started doing on other models now because it first came in rose and white.
Right.
And you had 2 options. And then...
I'm used to the inverse. I'm used to the yellow first.
Yellow is usually the first thing they introduce because it's the most popular color.
Little insider tip for you that I learned something new. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and the black platinum is my all-time favorite, and those they only did for about a year and a half. And then at the end of the run, I think it was only 11 months, they produced a J, and they shipped a few out. I've heard numbers thrown around that there's only 100, 150 of them out there. We happen to have one that's sealed. I mean, I just think it's the coolest. Which kills me, too, because I'm a believer in wearing my watches.
Right.
So it's like, I don't even know what I do with it sealed,
Maybe
except
you should
stare at it.
take it home and cut it open.
Yeah, well, that would be the dream, I guess.
There you go. All right, but awesome piece. I've always liked the 5970. I think it's a cool case. It wears really well on my wrist because I have a little bit bigger wrist. So I appreciate the fact. I'm a little torn with these type of watches because while I appreciate the beauty in the watch, it is a little busy for my aesthetic, my taste. But I guess if you're only going to have one, it might as well be that piece.
I also love Chronos in general, and I just think I also love square buttons. I mean, the 3970 had rounds. The original 1518 had square buttons. I mean, you see a lot of the variations. I've always loved square buttons for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, it's a pretty piece. So also go buy that watch. It's awesome. So we had a couple Rolex ones pulled up too. How are you feeling? You want to do Rolex?
Yeah, go ahead. We can do Rolex.
Can we talk about this? 1675?
1675. Again, GMT, one of the original tool watches. You used to see these all the time on military guys.
Yeah. So this is
they used to buy them in the PXs.
Yeah. So this is the watch that is, the grandfather of the trend with the new
Inspired
Pepsi.
the Jubilee, yeah.
So Jubilee, Pepsi bezel. This is the OG Pepsi. The 1675. Listen, it's a great watch. Still wearable in today's market. Now here we start to come into like a little bit of how collectible is an original one and vintage versus the ones that people are you got to be skeptical because no paper, no papers, no box, no pedigree. It's probably a Frankenstein piece.
Well, the thing, and also part of it people forget is these were common watches that were tool watches. They went in and out. Guys wore them hard.
Right.
And they would go in for service. And Rolex, by nature, liked to change hands because the luminous faded. When the things would fade, you would send it into Rolex to get serviced, and they would replace the dial.
Right.
And it wasn't expensive, so a lot of guys did. So you get a lot of these true vintage watches that have replacement dials that might be 20 years old, younger. You'll see new hands. You'll see new bezels. The trick that everybody wants today is everything that matches.
Right.
And as they fade, originally the bezel fades, the hands fade, the dial fades, and it should match together.
So yeah, one of the nice things too is if you buy a vintage piece like this where it went in the 60s or in the 70s and it was done by Rolex, you're going to get that equal fade across because Correct. It is old. It was done right and it was done by the manufacturer with vintage with parts of that day which are now vintage, so it looks right.
Right.
Whereas if you were to take a Survivor watch with a pretty clean dial and throw new hands on there,
it looks terrible.
Very, very hard watch to buy or sell.
Yeah.
So
that's why you'll see those big swings in prices too.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you find one that's original, mint, box papers, the Jubilee's even rarer because again they used to sell it with both options.
Right.
The Jubilee just wasn't as popular back in the day because it was considered more dressy. But these were the Pan Am watches.
Right,
I mean, it was a great part of the history.
It's weird to me to see that that trend stood the test of time because usually you see trends like go up and come down and go up and come down, and I still think the Jubilee's kind of the outlier.
Well, the Jubilee went away for a while. I mean, it really was like nobody was buying Jubilees 5 or 10 years ago.
But even now, the hottest, the new Pepsi, right? You can't find the watch, whatever. It sells over retail. It's a Jubilee, but there's still a core of people that aren't sure about that bracelet.
I don't like it.
And yeah, I personally don't like it.
It's not my thing.
I've said
I personally don't like it. Yeah.
But it's still, I think the oyster is still the king.
The oyster is definitely the king, I think.
So it's weird that that trend didn't swing.
I think what's going to be interesting is to see what happens to now these, Batmans, which are, people are going to start calling vintage when the Jubilees come out.
Oh, yeah, that Batman, by the way, is like 4 years away from being a vintage watch.
Exactly.
Just so you know. I was discussing this with him earlier. It's like anything that's more than 5 years old is vintage. I don't care what it is.
You kids.
But, yeah, I don't know. All right. We got one more. This is an actual vintage piece. Look at that. That is a old man's watch.
That is an old man's watch, and it's
6238.
6238, which is pre-Daytona. So everybody thinks of chronographs and Rolex as Daytonas.
Right.
Well, they were cosmographs before they were Daytonas. The Daytona came in later as they got the screw-down pushers and the racing heritage and all that part of it. So this was just an early steel sports chronograph and plain bezel, which, again, you don't see a lot of. They weren't terribly popular. They were manually wind.
Right.
So, if you really wore it every day and used it every day, every 2 or 3 years you needed service because the tubes wore out.
Right.
Because you're just unscrewing and screwing it every day.
This is legitimate, like, old world watchmaking.
Yes.
This is not hundreds of thousands of these things being produced.
Nope. This was not mass produced at all.
This is back to, like, we're talking pre-Newman stuff. We're talking pre.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
this was the early stuff.
The watch is cool. 6238's always kind of like a weird outlier chrono. The watch is ugly. I mean, I don't like it.
How do you say that watch is ugly?
It's ugly.
It's not ugly. It's kind of plain. I'll give you that in the silver dial. It's not ugly. You don't like Jubilee bracelets.
It's like the sad little sheep sitting in the corner. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you put that next to a El Primero Daytona, like, and I'm not a Daytona fan to begin with, so me sticking up for the Daytona should tell you something. But I don't know. To me, but I see it's cool. I can see the pedigree. It's
original. It's got, like, even you can see on the edgings on these dials.
Do you know? Is it like 36 millimeter? Or?
Yeah, it's about that. I think it is 36. The thing I like about it is it's original because you can see these dials used to wear and fade, and you can see the edging of it has started to peel back. But it's all original.
I mean, my favorite part of that watch, I'll be honest with you, is the pushers.
Yes.
So, for what it's worth, I don't know. Listen, it's a vintage watch in the sense that, it is a good example of a vintage watch because it is truly vintage. Like I said with the other piece, it's collectible because there's not millions of them out there. That one's in really good condition. And if you're talking about a long-term play, it's a Rolex and it's steel. So
it's
a
steel,
could you really
exactly.
go wrong
And it's
in today's
also
market?
not over-restored. I hate.
But you also got to buy stuff that you're going to wear and like.
Yes, and that's the nice thing with Rolex. You can wear them all the time.
For me, I mean, like, listen, if that was my great-grandfather's watch, I'd be ecstatic to have it in my box. So would I wear it? Probably not. But it'd be cool to have. But I'm not going out and hunting down that watch over something that I'll wear. You know what I mean?
I'll give you that. But again, a lot of the vintage stuff is not daily wearer stuff, and that's closer to the daily wearer. The GMT is definitely a daily wearer.
Yeah, 1675
is a great daily. I mean, you look cool wearing that watch just because, again, it's got blue in it. I love blue.
Well, it's the right color blue.
It's the right color blue.
And red, which Rolex failed to do on the new generation Pepsi.
They tried hard, but it took them years to get that color. Yeah.
Did they, though?
Yeah, they did. I mean, because we've been asking for years for that red. Because it was a traditional color, and they had trouble getting the ceramic to get the color.
I don't know if I buy that story. I've heard it before.
I'm sticking with it. It's a Rolex story. I'm sticking with it.
All right, listen, I don't know. I've heard that story before. To me, it looked like they said, hey, we're going to cram for this 3-year test in 6 months and get it done. But I don't know. I think they missed the mark on the color scheme. And it's funny because Tudor almost hit the mark on the Diet Pepsi.
I like the Diet Pepsi coloring better. I would agree
It is better. It's not quite perfect, but it's better.
It's better.
All right.
The Batman's still the most perfect one.
The Batman.
It is.
Soon to be
the best color.
The vintage Batman.
Vintage Batman, yes.
All right. Well, we left some time for some cool stuff that we brought with us. I heard you guys loud and clear in the comments, and you like it when we bring watches. Sometimes logistically that doesn't work, but we got some cool stuff for you today. So why don't you grab one and tell us what you think?
Well, I'll grab my all-time favorite. This is 3970. Again, we talked about 5970 being my. I might want to knock the place over. All-time favorite. This is the predecessor.
Okay.
What you typically see on this model in platinum is black diamond. It is super rare to see black stick on the platinum version. You would see every once in a while. See it.
I'm gonna give these guys, that dial is too special not to try and catch in the right.
Yeah.
So it's got this really, really dark lacquered dial. Which, there you go. And like you were saying, instead of the diamond markers.
Instead of the diamond markers, which is typical on the black, you get the sticks, which makes it super rare and more valuable. This particular one also was never worn. I sold this watch originally in the early 2000s and took it back from a collector, a friend of mine.
Well, you have this great book of business, which is like your core guys that are just...
We've been doing it for a long time.
Collectors. These guys, I mean, you were telling me that you have guys that buy stuff and never wear it.
Yeah.
Like this piece you were telling me just
went
kind of sits in a vault.
Yep.
And I think that's cool. But I guess if you can afford to do it, I personally would want to wear this watch.
I'm aware of stuff
But-
too, but there are some people who also don't feel comfortable wearing it, put it out. It just, they want to own it because it's cool.
I guess if you have the money and you're looking at it as an investment and
Right.
you're buying it knowing that it's going to sit to the side, then it makes sense. But
Yeah.
certainly a cool piece, and I'm sure he spent some time staring at that dial.
Yes.
Because I certainly would.
Everything about it's great. I mean, the back's great, everything.
Yeah, exhibition case back's beautiful
Yeah.
on that thing.
And again, Perpetual Chronos you can never go wrong with. The next one we have here is 3940, which again, super iconic perpetual calendar.
This is more what you would consider, or what I would consider, your classic dress watch, both in stature, thickness. It's a relatively thin perpetual calendar.
Right, thin, micro rotor, everything.
Something, micro rotor automatic. We were mentioning it has a little, you can hear the micro rotor. Pretty dial layout, little what I would call busy for how big the watch is, in my personal taste, but doesn't mean the watch isn't gorgeous. This one's actually really, really nice shape. Not too much going on. Solid case back.
But again, rare in rose gold at this era.
Right.
Because again, rose gold really only 10, 15 years ago became, guys didn't buy rose gold in the U.S. particularly. Mostly guys would buy yellow.
Yeah, so this is what you would say is like this is probably the only true vintage watch that we brought with us out of the four.
Yeah, I
would
mean,
say
again, you
in
could
the-
argue
in the
the
strictest
3970
sense,
is a couple of generations past.
Right. So in the strictest
In the
sense,
strictest
this is
sense,
probably
that's
the
true.
most
Vintage, yeah.
So
It looks like your dad's watch.
yeah, exactly. So the size also would dictate that, and it's if you're a mid-size, you're looking for a mid-size watch, smaller guy's watch, obviously fits the bill. But if I were shopping for something, I gotta be honest with you,
That is
it right
arguably
here.
the best case Patek's ever made.
Yeah.
I will argue that up and down. The lugs are spectacular. The bezel's spectacular.
The architecture on this case alone, and we won't even get to the movement yet, but you got the double-stepped bezel, double-stepped lugs, right? So just gorgeous. Look at that dial. So
And the size is
for
just
those
awesome.
of you that aren't watching or don't know what this is the 5070R, right, Manjos?
Exactly.
All right, so ready
Exactly.
for the money shot here.
There it is.
There we go.
Just beautiful movement. Now, this again first came out yellow gold black dial. Was basically a flop.
Right.
Again, I remember it sitting in a showcase. It was considered by most Patek guys of the time too big. Then Panerai came out, and suddenly this became a normal size small watch. So everything kind of swung up, and then this became super collectible. The white gold versions, the rose gold versions. Then they came out platinum blue, which is amazing. That's again
The platinum,
platinum blue is
I mean, the
spectacular.
platinum piece is. It's also, you don't see them. Guys keep them. You don't
Guys
really
keep
see them
them. No, we
circulate
haven't
on the
had.
market.
We didn't have one for a while. We bought one a couple weeks ago.
So you guys know I have
It's in
a
Switzerland.
7 1/4 inch wrist. Take a look at that.
That's
I mean,
the size.
it's a nice piece for the size, for what it is. I would wear that every day.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing because a lot of Pateks today. I have 3 Pateks that I wear one of occasionally because most of them are too small for me now.
Right.
That I would wear
Yeah, it's a pretty piece.
if I didn't have those damn 2 kids in college.
3 not too far away. Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. I'm
Yeah.
hoping one will eventually graduate.
There you go. And they're gonna be. They're all 3 are gonna be in there at the same time, probably. All right, and then how about we go outro on this? This is a pretty special piece, and tell us what we're looking at.
That is 5970. Again, best perpetual chrono, arguably square buttons, super. Again, variation between this and the 5270, which is the newer version of it. They took the 24-hour time and the leap year indicator and put it down on wheels,
Right.
so it is a little cleaner. But again, I love the size of this one. It's just, to me, it's classic, and it feels vintage. Now,
Right.
granted, it's not terribly old, but now they're getting to be, 20 years old.
Yeah, it's
It's,
right, not the strictest sense like we were talking about.
Right.
But, it's still a modern size.
Correct.
Right? You can wear the watch. It is extremely, for how busy the dial is. You could tell the effort that they went in to clean it up
Yep.
pays off because it's a readable dial. It's got a lot of read off. It's pretty. It
It's
really
pretty.
is.
It's pretty in white. It's pretty in rose. It's, the yellow's just rarer, but it's not my favorite. The black platinum's amazing.
Look, if that doesn't rival elongated datograph movement,
It's not there, but it's close. You
But
know
I mean-
my feeling on datagraphs.
listen, I I like dados too, and I spent about an hour and a half staring into 3 or 4 of them today for a customer. But they're beautiful. But I mean, I would be extremely honored to own that right there. Look at that.
Oh, you
I would
would
just
not,
swap the strap around and wear it this way. To be honest, very cool. All right, well,
that's an amazing piece.
Some of the fun of our job, you know, listen, it can get tedious, you know, but the fun part is talking to the guys and also getting to play with these things. I mean, whenever you're having a stressed out day,
you pull out a couple
of these things and you spend 10 minutes looking around, texting a couple guys that have never seen one of those in person, pictures of it, and then all of a sudden it's like,
it's even fun at the office for me. It's like, because we've got some of the younger traders who will come to me and ask me questions about this kind of stuff because I've seen them, and it's fun to teach the stuff too, because it's something I always grew up with and
I
still
can
have a
attest
passion for
to,
it.
if you're going to ask Manjos a question, better have a notepad ready, because the amount of information that's going to come off of that watch question is, I mean, you'll never need to learn about that watch again. It's awesome, and that's the type of experience that, you know, it's good to put in front of camera, because a lot of guys don't have that you know, asset.
Yeah, it's good. I love being there, and it's nothing more fun every day, to be honest with you.
All right, well, we're probably going to have you on another show.
I would love to. This was fun. Yeah, and, I mean, it's an honor. I can't fill Thanos' seat, but, you know, it's nice to temporarily take his spot.
I think he might, like, snap you out of existence if you try and steal his spot.
I spent a year plus sitting across from him, so we certainly spent more than our share of time together.
Well, yeah, so, you know, a lot of you guys know that Thanos and I sit back to back. Well, the other part of that triangle was Manjos for a year and a half, so there's a good relationship there. But all right, I think we're gonna try and keep it nice and concise and call that a show. I appreciate it. Thanks for logging in on a Thursday night. Hopefully this makes your Friday drive, maybe your weekend, a little bit better. We hit like 17,000 views on the last show, I think, or 16.5, something like that. Couldn't be more excited. I mean, we're gonna hope that this one gets to 20. If it doesn't, it's your guys' fault. But if you're not subscribed, please do so. We're growing the channel. It's been awesome to get the feedback. We're trying to get in all the comments, you know, respond to your answers. I will be on the comments. I know Manjos said he wants to log in and get some comments in. So, you know, drop a like, drop some comments. Let us know what we can do better.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Good show, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.